Hello, enter the waiting room. Should we let hello in?
Please.
What do you think, Tim?
I would think it's a safe bet.
Okay.
Right. What do we say we get the party started?
Okay.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Pitch Perfect number 4. This is our last Pitch Perfect before the final micro pitch competition. And so why is number 4 associated with it? This is it's our 4th micro pitch competition, and we always do a Pitch Perfect leading up to each micro pitch competition. So we had one in April, we had one in May, and then we had our 3rd one just the week before last, and so in September. And then our final one will be October 6th. And the way that Start Peninsula works is we have 10 people pitch at each micro pitch competition. The top 3 people that are awarded by as selected by a panel of judges. And then so 3 from each micro pitch competition moving forward to November 3rd's championship pitch event. That will equal the top 12. So we will have the top 12 pitches / businesses competing for the top prize on November 3rd. And we continue to add prizes to the list of things that you could win. The big one that everyone talks mostly about is the fact that the top 3 people will get $5,000 in seed funding. And we would not be able to do that without the local governments that put this on. So our host locality is the city of Newport News. We rotate locations every single year. This year happens to be Newport News. So we thank Newport News, the city of Hampton, James City County, York County, the city of Williamsburg, and the city of Poquoson. They are the ones that fund this effort to make everything possible. So thank you for your support. This is our 9th year in doing Start Peninsula. And we continue to get bigger, better, and quite honestly, the businesses, the quality of the pitches continue to get better, and the quality of the businesses also continue to get better. So the idea tonight is we are going to talk to you about how to perfect your pitch. So that way you increase your chances of moving through to the final event. November 3rd, historically speaking, 7 of the 10 will, of the people advance, go to Pitch Perfect, and 2 of the 3 winners will also are also ones that have gone through Pitch Perfect. So we are really confident that this will serve you well. This is being recorded. It will be posted to the website as the Pitch Perfect number 1, 2, and 3 are also on the Start Peninsula website. startpeninsula.com. We'll get this posted tomorrow. So if you want to review anything, you can do that as well. So with that said, the agenda for tonight, we are going to talk about the elements of the pitch. So we're going to teach you that. And then what I would recommend and what Gary recommends is, as we are doing this, grab a piece of paper, use your notes on your computer, your phone, or whatever the case is. And as we talk about these elements, just start writing sentences down. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the problem. So the problem is, and then just start writing sentences. That is going to create an outline of your pitch. And so we'll do that for the first portion. And then the second portion, we'll answer any questions. If you want to practice your pitch, you can do that. We'll provide feedback, things to consider. But when people do this, as they write down these simple sentences, we understand that it's really, really rough. But the great thing about this environment here is that, this is a trusted network. There is no judgment. Everyone leaves their ego as soon as they're let into this space, and you can just read it off the piece of paper. And then it's amazing. You'll see that we'll time this, and then you'll quickly learn how fast 3 minutes goes. So that will be the how we're going to do everything tonight. Before we get started, I'll introduce myself. My name is Tim Ryan. I have been lucky enough to orchestrate, for lack of a better term, Start Peninsula from the very beginning. Like I said, this is our 9th year. During that time, I've run incubators. I have worked with hundreds of small businesses, entrepreneurs, founders. I've heard thousands of pitches. I now am in the angel investing role, so I know what I'm listening for. So before I'll write a check to a company, there's certain things that you need to do, boxes that need to be checked. So I can help you from a judging standpoint, from a how you start your business standpoint. And we have doing this, we have helped companies raise millions of dollars in funding. I wouldn't be able to do this without the help of my partner in crime, Gary Plaag. Gary and I, we've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, and I'll let Gary introduce himself real quick.
Oh, I thought you were telling them that you couldn't do your angel investing without my help. Oh, maybe true. I don't think so. Hi, everybody. My name is Gary, and as Tim says, we go back about 4 or 5 years. And so I have in business that I started about 23 years ago when nobody had any help. And so I'm been successful, and I enjoy helping people to be successful. And my business is a communications consulting business. So I work with people on their presentation skills, public speaking skills, interpersonal communication skills, helping them to be able to tell their story when they need to tell their story, and making sure that they're telling it in a way that it's compelling and that people want to actually hear it and listen to it. I also work a lot on helping people who have anxiety and helping them to not be afraid when they're up in front of other people. And so that's my business, and excited to talk with you all tonight and help you. And as Tim said earlier, encourage you to, if you don't have a pitch right now, is to just start writing things as we're going through the various steps of how to prepare your pitch. Just start writing some ideas down. And then maybe at the end you could give it a try, and we can give you some feedback on things that will help you to make it even better. So I look forward to working with you, and I'll be chiming in off and on as we go through this presentation, and we'll talk to you in a bit. Thanks.
Yeah, and so Gary and I complement each other very well. So Gary hits things from the performance standpoint, I'll hit things from the business standpoint, and together we can help you create a very well-rounded pitch. So with that said, let's move on. As I had mentioned, for the purpose of this session, we're going to be talking about a 3-minute pitch. That is what's going to be asked of you at the micro pitch competition. So you'll have 3 minutes to pitch your business. That'll be followed with a 2-minute question and answer period. So we're going to put 3 minutes on the clock. You're going to get nervous. You're going to see a panel of judges, depending on what view you're looking at. And we want to make sure that you avoid all those nerves, that you don't crash and burn, and that you are going to have all the confidence that you need in order to succeed. So we're going to break down what a pitch is and what goes into it over the course of 3 minutes. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start with some sort of an attention getter. That can be a statement. That can be a variety of things. We'll get into what that is, but take 10 seconds just to get everybody's attention. Then you can get into the problem and take 50 seconds to do something like that. This is not exact science. This can be, You can do a 5-second attention getter and a 55-second problem, or shuffle those numbers around. This is just so that you can see what goes into the pitch. So you have your problem and your opportunity, 50 seconds. Then you're going to talk about your solution for another 50 seconds. Then at that point, you can share who you are, what your name is, what's your business name. The nice thing about this being on Zoom is the fact that when you participate, you'll have one of these fancy backgrounds that Gary and I have. People will be able to see your name. When they scroll over your face, your name will appear. But you have to give people a reason to want to know who you are for all the right reasons. So once they know the problem, once they know the solution that you're offering, then you can share with them who you are and what your name is, and then you can keep on going down the road because they want to know who you are. Then you're going to talk about the target market. 50 seconds there. And then you have your closing. You're going to have 15 seconds for your close. And when you total all of that up, everything's going to equal out to 3 minutes. So some people are going to ask what goes into the closing. So what you need to do to become successful in terms of, do you need help in certain areas? You're ultimately going to want to make them want more. That 15 seconds is also a nice buffer. So if you need an extra 5 or 10 seconds for the problem or the solution, that you can have that as well. But the whole idea of Start Peninsula is we want to make sure that you succeed. And in order to succeed, this is the same stuff that you're going to need with every single pitch that you give for the rest of the time that you're in business. You're going to have to talk about the problem, you're going to have to talk about the solution, and you're going to have to talk about your target market. It's that simple. So when the judges have their rubric, guess what's on their rubric? The problem, the solution, the target market, and how well your pitch performance is. It's those 4 categories. It's just that simple. So we have no secrets that we're keeping from everyone. We're very transparent about all of this. Anything you want to add, Gary?
Yeah, just it's really important that those of you who are listening take this to heart, because at the last micro pitch, there were some people that didn't even get halfway through and get to the point where they could talk about what their solution was because 3 minutes was up. And that's such a shame, because they try to tell you everything about the thing and all the technical details, but we're not ready for that yet. Let the judges ask you questions about these things, because they'll ask you questions for 2 minutes. They want to see if they're interested in learning more about what you propose. So I really encourage you to take this to heart, get our attention, and identify the problem and the solution. And we're going to go into more detail about that, but this timeline is really critical. And one person, we'll talk about the attention getters in a second, but one person at the last one asked a question that ate up about 30 to 35 seconds of his time. And then he's left not being able to finish who his target market is. And so the judges are thinking, well, is this even worth investing in? Because we don't even know what the target market is. And people get caught off guard. So I just encourage you to really, as Tim said, it's a bit flexible, but really take to heart that you only have 3 minutes and it will speed by. So.
Yep. All right. So now we're gonna break all of this down a little bit further. So here are some things to consider. And one of the things we're going to talk about is the idea and the innovation. And so first and foremost, you want to think about like the 10x factor. If you have something that you want to do, if you want to start a business, or if you want to change a customer's behavior, whatever it is that you need, that you're trying to do, it has to be 10 times better than what the current status quo is. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult to change that customer behavior. So that's first and foremost, having that in the back of your mind, that my idea is 10 times better than what is currently out there. But beyond that, you want to think about, is the problem big enough? And so one, you want to make sure that it's not something that's really, really niche and something that people just don't really see it as a problem. And that in terms of with that, can you do that 10 times better than what is currently being out there? So is it big enough? And then once you determine that it is big enough, how do you differentiate yourself? What are you doing different than your competitors? How is it being done different? And how is, so you're explaining that, how is it 10 times better? And these are, again, this is all part of what the judges, as they hear this, they're taking into consideration when they're scoring you. Okay, is this problem big enough that somebody wants to be solved? How are they differentiating themselves from the competition that's out there? And how much better is your solution? So you're framing all of this stuff so that you can show them how innovative you are.
Yeah, just an example. You know those wooden mallets with the rubber ball and the string attached to it that we might have played with as kids? If you come into the competition and you say, I've developed a really great paddle ball with a string attached to the rubber ball, and you say it's just really awesome, and the judges are going to go, well, how is that different than the one I get at the Walmart or at the party supply store? And you don't tell us how it's that much bigger and better, then we're not interested. We're like, okay, that's not a commodity item. No one's buying those really, and you buy them for a party and throw them away. And how many people have them at a party anyway? So that starts running through the judge's head that this is probably not worth even listening to. But I'm going to be nice for the next 2.5 minutes. So.
And the reason that we're phrasing all this stuff in questions is that so that you can think about this. So as you're writing these things down, in this slide, it says, is the problem big enough? And then you're thinking to yourself, yes, it's big enough because 200,000 people in every single city with a population of 300,000 face this, whatever the case is. So we want you to answer this question. So as you're writing these things down, we are starting to formulate the really, really rough draft and shape of where the pitch is going itself. So these will all come into play. Next up is going to be the marketability, and the things that you're going to want to consider there is the fact that you want to identify your customer. You have to know who you want to be talking to, who you're targeting. And so the micro pitch from a couple weeks ago is also on startpeninsula.com, and you can listen to that. And some of the judges during the Q&A, they straight up ask, how many customers have you talked to? And what was their feedback? So not only were they asking how many did you talk to, before you even get to that point, you need to identify who your customer is. So is it this particular age group? Is it this particular gender? Is it this particular neighborhood that somebody that lives in? Whatever the case is, they make this amount of money. Know who that or know what that demographic is that you are going to be marketing towards. So as you talk about this, now what you're doing is you're demonstrating your understanding of that market segment. So you're showing the judges or the investors that, wow, that I'm just thinking to myself, I know my stuff, and they're thinking, wow, this person knows their stuff. This is exactly who they're going after. This is who they're targeting, and they've got their stuff together. Because one of the things that's interesting is that I'm going to get ahead of myself for a second here, is you want to narrow down that market segment as narrow as you possibly can. So are there any unique characteristics that you're going for with that target market? And the more that you understand your customer, the more that you understand what they're looking for, the better off you're going to be. And the smaller the focus you have, the better you are. Because right now, you're going to have a limited budget, you have a limited team, you have the limited capabilities in terms of what you're able to do. So you got to really focus really, really narrowly in terms of who you're going to sell that product or service to. And then as your revenue increases, as your capability increases, then you can start opening up that aperture of who you're able to sell to, if that makes sense. Good, Gary?
Yep, good.
Cool. All right. This is, this is really, really important. The execution piece of this, things that you need to consider. how will you make this a reality? As I said, when I was introducing myself at the very beginning of this, I have heard thousands of pitches. And the thing about it is, I've heard really, really good pitches. I've heard really, really bad pitches. At the end of the day, though, ideas are just ideas, and they don't mean anything unless the founder and the founder's team is able to make it a reality. So you need to prove to to the judges and the investors or people that are considering to get involved with your business, that you are the person that is going to make this a reality. I mean, no matter what the obstacle may be, you are going to be the one to make it happen. You're not just going to throw in the towel as soon as you hit the first speed bump, because people invest in people. They do not necessarily invest in the idea. I mean, again, I've heard awesome ideas, but it's like, I know there's not a chance in the world that this person is going to be able to make this a reality. They don't have the skill set, they don't have the experience, they don't have the team, whatever the case is. They're not going to be the ones to make it happen. So another thing that you need to understand is what is your why? I mean, this is really, really important. So as I mentioned, once you hit a speed bump, are you going to quit? Once you have your first bad day, are you going to quit? So what is your why? If you understand what that why is, that's going to be the thing that forces you to get out of bed in the morning. That's going to be the thing that helps you overcome whatever obstacle it may be, because it's not an easy road, and you have to have a pain tolerance unlike anything else in order to be a successful entrepreneur. So it has to be embedded deep within you if you are going to make this thing successful. And you're going to turn back to your why over and over and over again. And I'll give you the answer to the quiz. If your why is because you think it's an opportunity to make a lot of money, you failed the quiz, because investors don't want to hear that. They know better than anyone that is just chasing money or chasing an opportunity to make money, when you do have that first bad day, you're going to quit, and then you're going to chase after the next thing that has the potential to make a lot of money. So it has to be, I mean, you have to be totally vested in making sure that that you're able to solve this problem and able to execute.
And if I could jump in, Tim, Tim and I both know someone who is a friend of ours who is a very successful entrepreneur and has done numbers of businesses, but he told me at a breakfast one time that that you're passionate about it, about this thing that you're doing. It means your why is really rich and embedded in you. When you are sleeping in your car on Thursday night without another place to live, wondering how you're going to make payroll the next day. That's the kind of grit you have to have when you start a business like this. These things are not, it's not an easy road, as Tim said. What's the old phrase that you used to use? It was on one of the pictures you had in your office. It was the idea is free, but the hustle's extra, or something.
So it was something like that.
Yeah. Are you going to keep going? Are you passionate about this thing that you're willing to sacrifice so that it can be successful? Because it may not be successful and you still be comfortable for a little while. So that's the why. What is it that drives you?
Yep. And one of the big things that helps along that way is going to be your team. And this is a really, really important piece of your business and what needs to be included. So some things to consider there is that your team helps you showcase your strengths. So again, as I mentioned, I can hear a pitch or an idea that talks about like deep science or a crazy engineering problem. But if they don't have the team that has that skill set, then it's very easy to discount the possibility of making that a reality. However, if you have someone that's on your team that is like the world-renowned industry expert in this particular area, then now everything changes. And so you need to look at your pitch. Is it the problem? Is it the solution? Is it your team? What is the strongest thing that you have that's working for you? And then that needs to be emphasized front and center in your pitch. You don't want to, so the last thing that we want to see is you come up with this pitch 3 minutes hits, we cut you off because, and you can't say anything else. And you get to the point where you have the team and you have the all-star dream team that's totally going to make this thing a reality, but you didn't have an opportunity to tell them because you ran out of time. So leverage your team, showcase your strengths, and order everything, order it in a way that you're going to get to it. So you're explaining to them why you are the person or why you are the team that's going to solve this problem. And then that dovetails into what your why is. That dovetails into how your team is made up and how you do certain things. The team is such a strong part of the pitch. And a lot of people will just kind of flash by it and just totally gloss over it, but it's really, really important. That comes to the investability aspect of your company. So like this really could be its own class, its own webinar or whatever you want to call it. Is your company investable? Is an investment necessary? Those are some of the things. We're not asking you to be an expert in this, but in terms of the judges may ask you, what would you use the $5,000 for? Or, what is the roadmap of your company? Where are you going to be going with it? So you need to understand, are you able to bootstrap, your company and not take any outside money? Those are things that you need to think about. I follow this stuff all the time, but you talk about a crazy story last week. MailChimp, they bootstrapped their company. They never took a penny of outside money, and they just sold to Intuit for $12 billion. The founder owns everything, $12 billion. So is an investment necessary? Why do you need it? What is that money going for? Do you need it to hire an engineer? Do you need software developers? Do you need marketing people? Do you need to, what are the proceeds going for? What will what will the money be used for, and why? So those two kind of work together. And again, this is something that I wouldn't necessarily have in my pitch, but it's good to think about having your back pocket in terms of how the investors make their money. Just in the sense of, hey, be very upfront. Hey, we're either going to strike out or we're going to have a grand slam. We're going to take this thing as far as we can, and then see what happens. Is it debt? Hey, you give a line of credit. You give us X amount of dollars, and we'll pay X% interest. Whatever the case is, this is the stuff to have in the back of your pocket. The big thing is that as you're pitching to these judges are acting as investors on behalf of the localities that are putting up the funding for this. So they just want to make sure that your business that you're talking about is something that is going to be investable. This is the short thing. Another
question too, Tim, for everybody is that I've heard on numbers of these pitch questions that when it's the Q&A part is sometimes the judges will just outright say, how are you going to make money? Because the person who's pitching hasn't said how they're going to make money. Right. They talked about the problem, they talked about the solution, but they never said how they're going to make money. How is this going to be monetized so that you're going to make money? Well, we're going to sell each of these things for $3 and they cost $5 to make. Well, you're not, how are you making money?
Yeah. That would be a non-investable company.
That would be a non-investable thing. Yeah. So just remember that you need to say, have available how you're going to make money, because the judges are probably going to ask that if you don't cover it in your pitch.
Perfect. Great point. So basic needs. So again, this can be part of the closing that we had talked about at the very beginning. What is it that you need? The thing that is so awesome about the entrepreneurial community is the fact that everybody there wants to see you succeed. Everybody will do whatever they can to ensure that success happens. But unless you tell somebody how they can help you, they're not going to help you because they just don't know how. So this is you have to make yourself vulnerable. You need to share with them, hey, I'm not an expert when it comes to contracts. If anyone knows an attorney that they can refer me to, I would love to talk to an attorney. Or I have no idea, I need somebody that can help me with my revenue model, whatever the case is, but leverage that vulnerability as a strength, and know what you need. And that also shows leadership as well, in the sense of, hey, we know that we don't have everything that we need, but we've identified that and we're doing whatever we can to overcome those shortfalls. I didn't realize that I was jumping ahead of myself so much. I don't have presentation view on this. So use that vulnerability as a strength. Because the flip side of it is so many founders, they're borderline, if not uncoachable, and you have to be coachable or else you're not going to be investable. But the other thing is that people will take this, I'm a type A alpha personality, that I know all the answers and I don't need your help. And that they think that that's going to be the attitude that you need to take in order to just bully your way through success. And it just doesn't work that way. I mean, many hands makes easy work. So again, I can't stress that enough.
And the thing to think about too when you're being vulnerable is that people like to help people. If you don't say that you need help, no one's going to offer to help. They think you got it all covered, and so they will expect success. But if you need help, I mean, that's one of the things that when you say I need help, those three words are almost irresistible to most people. When they hear that, they want to help you. So this would be an opportunity in the pitch, would be for you to say, I need help with these things, as Tim said. And usually people will come out of the woodwork. Some of the judges may even, after the contest, reach out to you and say, let me help you. I heard you say you needed some help with this. Even if you didn't win or weren't one of the three or whatever, they still may reach out to you. But even somebody who's listening may reach out and say they would love to help you. So again, I need help is pretty much an irresistible phrase that most people who are good people can't resist reaching out and helping. So be sure to be vulnerable.
This is really Gary's, this is where Gary shines. This is where he goes. Gary, do you want to walk through these?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, the old joke is, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is practice, practice, practice. It's not necessarily how do you get there on the street, but it's how do you get there as a musician? Well, you practice. And in this case, on these pitches, suggest that you practice, plan. I mean, I'm learning to play the violin. Here I am old and I'm learning to play a stringed instrument, terrified, but I set aside an hour every day that I sit down and practice. Even if it's late at night or early in the morning or sometime, but I sit down and practice, or I'm never going to get to where I want to get. The same thing applies with these pitches. And another scary thing here is that it was a study that was done at a university about the impact of three elements of a presentation. It was vocabulary that you use, the volume and vocal inflection that you use, and the body language that you use. And the way it turned out was that 55% of the impact was the body language, facial expressions, and how you use your body when you're talking. 38% was volume and vocal inflection, and only 7% was the words. And you think about, that's 93% is not about the words, yet we never practice. We don't practice the other components, even if it's online, even if it's on Zoom. You still have to practice those the 93% of volume and vocal inflection and physical characteristics, in addition to the language. But a lot of times we just practice the language, and we go over and over and we memorize scripts, and then we're disappointed with the results because we didn't practice the other things. So I encourage you to practice everything. And I don't know what the next thing is. Yeah, and the first thing we don't want to start with is a question, because it just wastes time. And I alluded to that earlier, where one person in a past pitch event asked a question and was crazy. because it used up 35 seconds and then didn't get to talk about the important things at the end. So that's an important thing. Don't start with your name because we don't care. I don't care who you are until I have a reason to care. So, plus the other thing is I can see your name on the slide. So in this case, you don't really have to put your name. It's good to say your name, but don't make it first. If you've got stuff in your story that's irrelevant, get rid of it. And because you only have 3 minutes, I do encourage you to write out a script. I don't encourage you to memorize it. I encourage you to know it and know what that script is. And when you write out a script, the problem with memorizing the script that you write is that most oftentimes we don't talk the way we write. And so you're going to get up and say things like, you may have noticed a few drops of paint on my brush from my latest still life oil painting. I mean, who says that? No one says that. It might sound great in your pitch when you write it, but nobody talks like that. So when you write out your story, great. Go through and see what's relevant and what's not. If it adds to my story, great. If it doesn't add to my story, get rid of it and make sure that it is something that you would actually say, not something that just sounds good on paper. The other piece is to think about if you have trouble pronouncing certain words, don't put them in your pitch. Make sure you use words that you can pronounce really, really well and that you don't have to think about. And I know we all have words like that get in our way. We get tongue-tied, and when we're nervous, it's even worse. So figure out, use simple words. You don't have to sound smart. Your idea will carry itself. And much better that you look and feel authentic. So as it says here, it's both a story and a performance. And if you're not doing the performance aspect of it and just telling the story, and the performance means, is it authentic? Is it really you? Is it you honestly explaining to people how this problem and solution program is going to work for you? No audience likes to be lectured. So if you're just spewing data for 3 minutes and lecturing people, not interesting. If you are striving to educate the judges about this brilliant idea you have and how you're going to execute it, then that's great. Here's the big question. How do you know if you're doing that besides trying it here at the end of Pitch Perfect? Well, everybody has a cell phone, and everybody has at least that you can set your phone up and video record yourself. You could start Zoom, I think, is a free account for up to 40 minutes. So get a Zoom account and record yourself and then watch it. And it's that kind of, the watch it part is the scary part, because you get really, really self-conscious when you have to watch yourself and say, is that really what I look and sound like? Yeah, it really is. And so if you can do that, then you're way ahead of most people who say, oh, I'm too embarrassed to look at myself on video, or I'm so embarrassed to hear my own voice. I can guarantee you, after you record and watch it about 5 times, all that vanity goes away. And you start looking at it more as, well, if I was coaching this person on this thing, this is what I would tell him or her what to do. And so really, really practice and practice in a smart way. So for every line, every slide or line that you add, you have to ask the question that goes back to, is it relevant or not? Does it enhance my story? Does it not? If it doesn't, get rid of it. We often don't want to kill our babies. These are our written babies that we write. It's our creative stuff. And we don't want to kill our lines because we think they're great. They may not be. So if they're enhancing the story, great. If they're not, get rid of it. Cool. So I think we're at the end of our formal piece, but we're certainly open to any questions that you all have about things that we may not have covered, or where you're confused, anything like that.
And I'm gonna add, in the sense of to the bullet about it's a story and a performance. So it's a performance in the sense of what Gary was talking about, but it's a story in the sense of, so many times we will tell people that, hey, let me introduce you to Gary. Gary has such and such of a problem. Gary tries to do this or Gary tries to do that, and he hasn't been able to do it until now. So you identify the problem, and then you talk about your solution, and then you talk about who you're marketing this to. So because people are visual learners. And so if you can incorporate all of this into a story, then that's something that people, they can envision themselves being part of this. Or, yeah, I totally get that. That's me too. I need that solution. I want to buy that. That's and so you're buying into people. So it's a story and a performance at the same time, because it goes to the whole, back to the cliche of numbers tell and stories sell. So as you can, and then you're going to be remembered and you're going to want them make more. So that's the whole aspect of where we're going in terms of it's a story and a performance.
And let me also add on the, we talked briefly about it, but the attention getter. What kind of a thing could be an attention getter? If you had a presentation that was going to be 35 minutes long or 45 minutes long, you could actually ask a question or two, and that would be fine. In this venue, it doesn't work because you have such limited time. You could also use a quote. You could use a startling statistic, for example, and this would be a long one. This is one that a client of mine used in a presentation about smallpox, and she was an infectious disease specialist. And she said, she opened up without saying my name is or anything, and she said, we did a what if scenario here in the hospital system, and we discovered in the greater metropolitan area, if 3 people contracted smallpox, within 30 to 45 days, 3 million people would be dead. And the whole place was stunned. And then she repeated that. And then she went on to say, my name is so-and-so, I'm an infectious disease specialist here at this hospital system, and today we're going to talk about how to avoid that. And so it was a startling statistic that got everybody's attention. So it's those kinds of attention getters you want to think about. A statistic, a startling statement, some kind of fact. It could be a number. It could be something that you go on to explain. I was thinking if you wanted to start a dog wash salon or something, you could say, you could just make a statement and say, dogs get dirty and you don't want them in the house. And then you could go on to say, this is a problem because blah, 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 blah. And then I have the solution. The solution is my dog wash salon where you can do it yourself. And you go on to explain how that works and how many people have dogs and how many of them need to wash the dog and they live in an apartment and putting the dog in the bathtub is not acceptable, and on and on and on. And people start relating and they go, wow, this is a really good thing you could do. There probably aren't too many of these.
You know, your market segment is people with 80-pound dogs or more, you know, and
right.
So you start diving, you know, I mean, so you can see where this is going.
Yeah.
But if anyone, as people are building up the courage or to want to try their pitch, if you want to get in touch with us, this is our contact information. Feel free to reach out to us, write that down. But we're happy to answer any questions. Or if anyone wants to go through their pitch, they certainly can.
I have 2 questions, if that's all right.
Yep.
The first one is, I'll make the 2 questions. The first one is, I know this is more for the Start Peninsula pitch contest. That's what I'm getting at. But normally in networking, when you're networking, you have just like 1 minute, 30 seconds. So I see this is a huge breakdown of 3 minutes, but how can you condense this in 30 seconds? And the second one is, this, I don't know if you can answer this one. It might be a little off topic, but sometimes you're not like really looking for investors for money, more like strategic partners, like someone that can introduce your, more like a referral partner now that I think about it. So how can you, doing a pitch, how can you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, it's at that point, you know, now you're talking in you're literally like now in sentences, and so in terms of, you know, whatever the problem is, it's packing that in and condensing that into whatever, either it's the biggest segment that you have. So it's shortening everything because you're still addressing a problem and you're still solving a problem that people have. If you're doing an introduction, even then, when you're like, if anybody knows anybody that is in need, we're targeting this type of person, this type of group, this type of business, whatever the case is, that's who we're looking for. So even from that standpoint, that's your market segment that you're addressing. But it's just, I mean, it tightens everything up and condenses everything so much that then words really matter.
Alejandro, what's your business?
Oh, I'm a professional translator and interpreter.
Okay, so I saw that it said into translations. I thought I could only see part of it, but so my thought, if looking at that, if somebody was in an elevator with you and said, or you're in line at a wedding at the food table and you don't know everybody, and they say, oh well, you're a friend of the bride, what do you do? And you would say something. You might say something like, how people have people on their teams at work who don't speak English as a first language, and they're much more proficient at a different language. And the person will go, yeah. And you say, well, I provide translation services so that people who don't speak English as a first language have a chance to express themselves in very dynamic ways, and they can be understood. And that the people that need their services and their help in their business can be able to talk to them back and forth so that they understand what they need, and that the people that are doing the work understand what the boss wants. And so that's what I do. I help to, and maybe you even change it and you make it clever and you say, I help to solve communication problems in the business world. And people go, oh, well, what is that you do? And you say, I provide translation services for people where English isn't their first language. And then the person goes, oh, well, what kind of people are you looking to work with? And you say, I'm looking for people in the grounds maintenance industry who have staff that don't speak English very well, and the owners don't speak the other language very well. That's specifically what I'm looking for. And somebody will go, oh, well, I know somebody I know 3 people who have a business like that, and they're struggling with this right now. And you go, okay, great. So now you've had a 1-minute conversation.
I've had, I've been having that problem, so it's good to know that, because people right now, every time I just always assume people know what translation is. So they normally tell me, but why? We can use Google. And I'm like, well, it's not the same. I mean,
no,
I'm not. Yeah, there's things you can use Google for, but like something simple, that's not really what I do. So that's why I asked that, like, how can you explain it in such a short amount of time without getting technical?
So I gave you an option. Does that work?
Yeah, that's a good option. Although what I'm trying to do is more not in the business, like inside a business, but more like if they want to expand their business.
Okay.
For the Hispanic community, it's an advantage that I'm from Mexico. So the thing is, normally Mexico is sort of the standard Spanish. So it's you have a Spanish translation, maybe that a Mexican normally is going to work for the rest of Latin America because they're used to it.
Yeah. So I mean, I've heard an insurance salesperson before say they would try to say I sell insurance, and that doesn't work. And so what I've heard people say is I sell peace of mind. And somebody goes, what do you mean by that? You say, well, I help people to have peace of mind so they don't have to worry about if something bad happens to them. And then they go, you say, I sell insurance instruments and other products. Oh.
The communication problem, that's perfect. You're right.
Yeah.
It's a communication problem.
Correct. Cool.
Second one, I don't know if you remember the second question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna remind you. I ask, how during your pitch, if you're not looking for an investment, like a money investor, but more like a, like a strategic investor, someone that can refer you or give you a contact, or maybe maybe someone that has more experience in that um, industry. How can you make that clear during your pitch?
But Tim, isn't that, I think that's one of the needs. You identify what you need.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't
And,
have
and
to.
you would be surprised, so again, what Gary said, that would be one part of your needs. And then establishing a relationship from an advisory type of standpoint, you'd be amazed at how much people will help in terms of what I'm saying is don't go out and talk to somebody for the first time saying, hey, I'll offer you 15% or 20% if you can refer business to me. Chances are, once you establish a relationship and a dialogue with that person and they understand what your needs are, chances are they'll do it for free. So it's like, just hold off. And it's the thing about this pitch is that this is, and I said at the beginning, you want to make them want more. You're not going to close a deal on this pitch. So the idea for this, if you're participating in Start Peninsula, you want to make it through to November. If you're talking to investors, then the goal is you want that second meeting. If for this particular question, you want to establish a relationship or a strategic partnership, that's not going to happen on the first meeting. So you want to establish that relationship to have a follow-on meeting. You're muted.
And that applies to also to what we were talking about before. Even if it's at a networking event and you have this 1 minute, you're never going to sell people and get a client in 1 minute. So your goal is to say enough that they understand, and then seek another meeting, another opportunity to meet for coffee or something else to talk more about it. And you may not be a good fit for them. And if you ask more questions, you would be well respected if you said, I don't think I'm a good fit for what you all need. But you might be. You don't know, but you're never going to know in the first minute that you say what you do. And at those kind of meetings, just as another side thing, at those kind of meetings when they go around the room, unless you're last, probably no one's going to remember what you said, because they're all worried about what they're going to say. And so it's better that you know what you're going to say, and then you can freely listen to everybody else. But if you're worried about what you're going to say, know that everybody else is worried about what they're going to say, and whatever you say probably isn't going to matter to them.
That's true. I'm in a networking group in a chamber of commerce, and
Yeah.
we're like 35. I never remember what anyone else says.
Right.
Because like, what do I have to say now? Like, how do I catch their attention? And apparently. Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Tamika, are you going to run your pitch again?
Yeah, Gary, after tonight, I'm going over some things and see how can I make it better.
Okay. I will say, one of the things, Tamika, if you're open for some feedback based on your pitch from a couple weeks ago, Gary and I were texting back and forth during, I think it was during the Q&A. But so it goes back to one of the things that we've talked to Tamika before, and we talked to other people about, is identifying where people may have, gosh, I'm blanking out now, where people may not agree with or anticipate objections. And so, like, Tamika, when you were pitching, one of the things that one of the judges said was, well, why would I do this when I can just get a windshield replaced for free? And I was like, no, that's not the case. The only way you can get a windshield replaced for free is if you have, a particular type of car insurance, or you have a really low deductible for your car. And I told Gary and Tamika, I think I told you that when I had to replace the windshield of my car, it was over $1,000, and I did not want to go through and have an insurance claim On $1,000, I would rather come out of pocket for that, and then, knock on wood, if I was to need to file a claim, then I would do that on something else that was more, because I wouldn't want my rates to go up. So when I heard that just, the alarm sounded off to me, saying, okay, that's an objection. We need to anticipate that objection, and you need to craft that into your pitch in terms of, where, so that you can cut that off right at the head, because at that point, the judge just immediately thought, well, that's not a problem that is being solved, when in fact it really is. And then, I can't speak for him, but let's just, for argument's sake, say that he stopped listening after that because he didn't think it was a problem any longer.
Yes, I was so concentrating on getting through the pitch that by the time I got to the questions, my mind was just all over the place.
I loved your pictures,
Oh my
though.
gosh.
You had great pictures, though.
So I did go back and I did add all of that with the insurance, that the deductible can be more and less. I did add that into my pitch. So I did include all the things that I missed the first time.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you going to sign up for number 4?
She already did.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. That's good. Yeah, you
Yes.
need to. I think you were, I would say that you had one of the better pitches. It's just that those little kind of things that Tim just mentioned that would be helpful for you in this 4th one.
And
Yes,
clearly,
thank you.
yeah, I obviously was not in the deliberation room with the judges, because I was talking to you all when they were
Yeah.
deliberating. So I don't know. I was just, to me, that's what I heard when I was listening to the judges speak.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Anybody
with that,
else?
one of the things too is that, take a log of the questions that people ask you. Take an inventory of any objections that people have, or if there's just always a reoccurring question that people continue to ask. Write all that stuff down, because that's an indicator that you need to change or modify your pitch so that you can include that stuff, because people continue to ask it over and over again. So there's a hole in it somewhere.
This is another thing which I've shared in other Pitch Perfects, and it was something I learned from a teacher I had in grad school, and she would always study explanatory skills. That was one of her things that she studied, how people explain things. And she said that 4 words that were really helpful. She said that clarifying explanations anticipate confusion. So in other words, explanations that clarify things for people anticipate where they may get confused while you're explaining. And then you figure out, where might they get confused, and let me go back and adjust my explanation so they don't get confused. So anticipating where people might get confused and then fixing the explanation is a good rehearsal. And you also, another thing you could do is, which I ask a lot of my clients who are doing big time pitches on things for lots of money, is to, like if they're bidding on something, is that I will ask all the people in their organizations to send me questions, because I'm the coach, to send me questions that would scare all of them on the pitch team to death. And then when we have a practice, I ask the questions, and the people go, well, it's better that you do that in rehearsal than when the judges ask you questions. So I say, practice the hard questions. So, ask family members or people in business that you've talked to about your idea and say, hey, I'm doing this pitch contest. Can you give me some questions that I would be scared to death to answer? So that you've already had hard things, and then maybe have a friend, don't look at them, but just have a friend read them for you in front of the camera, and then have you answer them, and then go back and watch the video and go, yeah, that wasn't a good explanation. I didn't do well on that, or that was pretty good. I just need to tweak this one thing. So that's another great way to practice when it comes to the Q&A. And the Q&A on this pitch contest will be, you finish, as Tamika said, you get so hyped up because you're doing this performance, you feel really good about it, you feel like you're knocking it out of the park, and then the judges each ask one question, which you have to write down, and then Tim puts 2 minutes on the clock and you answer the 3 questions. So here's the thing that you can do, which hardly anybody did, because I think they didn't think of it. Tim puts 2 minutes on the clock. You've got 3 questions that these judges have asked, which you've written down. You finish in 58 seconds. You have another minute left until Tim waves feverishly at you that you're done. That's a chance for you to go back. If you left something out of the pitch that you remember you left out because you ran out of time or whatever, let's say you left out your target market. You can go back in that leftover 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and talk about your target market. You could just simply say, you answer those 3 questions and then say, and let me tell you a little bit more about my target market, which I was covering during the pitch, blah, 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 blah. Oh, now you've actually taken advantage of that extra time to answer yet another question. So that's just the thing about being self-aware, that you know what you're doing and you're not going to let any of this basically 5 minutes, 3 minutes for a pitch and 2 minutes for questions, you're not letting any of it get away from you. You are in total control of all of it. That's how I would approach this. But then Tim and I have watched tons of these, so we can say that we're not you sitting under the wire with the spotlight on you going, what do I do now? So I'm just telling you ahead of time. Take advantage. If you have extra Q&A time, go back and add stuff that you might have left out of the pitch.
And don't apologize saying, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. They don't know. Just roll with it and say, play it off like, oh, I would like to take the opportunity to tell you about, like Gary had suggested.
Or you could even say, you could say, let me take the opportunity to tell you this. Or when I explain this idea to a number of people, they often ask the question, blah, 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 blah. You say, and the answer to that is, blah, 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 blah. And then you've stuck in something that was not covered in the pitch, perhaps, and not covered by the 3 judges. More information opportunity. So that's a pro tip for you. Anybody else?
Gary's very expensive. This is free time for Gary.
Yeah, that's right. It's free time.
So if no one wants to ask questions, I can keep going.
Yeah, then just go ahead and take advantage of all of it.
I mean, if no one, I can keep, I have a lot of questions, but I was waiting for someone else to,
Well, clearly no one's knocking the door down, so go right ahead.
It's a little intimidating. Because you have a lot of experience, it's a little intimidating, so I understand that.
So think about that comment. So if I said before I was taking violin lessons, so if I went to a show and there's a bluegrass fiddle player on the stage, and after the show they're just answering questions for people and hanging out, and no one else in the audience wants to ask questions, am I going to ask questions of this fiddle player because I get to? Yes. If they've made him or herself available, I'd be a fool to not take advantage of it. So yeah, I'd be, until somebody told me, Gary, shut up, I'd be all over it. So yeah, be a pig. Ask lots of questions.
Well, you mentioned, if I get a little out of topic, just let me know. But you mentioned follow up, and everyone says follow up, but how much time does it have? How can I ask this question? How much time do you have to wait before you follow up? Next day will it look too weird? 1 week, 2 weeks?
You mean in an interview, in a networking situation when you've met somebody at an after hours or something, and you're chatting?
For example, like you forgot and 1 month later you're like, oh, I forgot to follow up. Will it be all right to still follow up, or you
Yeah. Well, this is, yeah, and since nobody else is asking questions, I don't mind talking about this a little bit, but
Thank you.
what I do when I go to a networking event, and I get your card, then I go home and I email that night before I go to bed. I email the person and say, it was a pleasure to meet you at the XYZ Chamber event, and I look forward to meeting you for coffee if you're available in the next week, and I'd love to learn more about your business. And then if the person will probably email you back and think, wow, this person was right on it and emailed me right away, and may email you back, and I look forward to speaking with you again at another chamber event. It could be as simple as that, but I think you need to, if you really want to be engaged, and it's not necessarily about you getting the work, it's about you being connected to this person.
Yeah.
And if you can help them to get business by just being a friendly person about it and learning more about their business, they're going to want to learn more about your business.
Okay.
If you take an interest in them, they will take an interest in you. And if they don't, or they don't respond to you, they're not interested in doing business. So, okay, I'm good. I did my due diligence. I emailed and said, I really enjoyed meeting you. I look forward to an opportunity to have coffee with you or have lunch with you or to see you at another event. And if they don't respond, okay.
You mentioned there's this don't do things, right? Is there something else we shouldn't do, shouldn't mention? Like, for example, I was in a networking meeting and someone said, oh, do you know doTERRA? And I was like, no, I don't like it. I think she got offended. But it was such a honest reaction from my part. So I was wondering, is there like something else we shouldn't say, something we shouldn't mention, or be a little more careful about? Someone actually told me you shouldn't use words like because or but. Is that true?
I think it all depends on what you're talking about and what your relationship is with things like that. So.
You're networking a pitch, like you're using, yeah, you're presenting, introducing yourself, and someone told me like you shouldn't use words like because or but, because I don't know why, but
okay. Well, may I make this suggestion for you? So you have my contact information, and if you'd like to meet up online, I'm happy to spend some time just chatting about networking things that you might do to make it even more effective for you. I'm happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
I was taking advantage of this.
Yeah, but I'm happy to do, because if everybody else doesn't want to listen to this, so.
There'll be a race who can contact who first.
Yeah, but go ahead and reach out to me if you want. Tim, can you put the emails back up?
I think no, I didn't. I wrote your Twitter information.
Yeah, and just email me, and I'm happy to set up a time to chat with you for a few minutes about those more networking focused things. But my email is Gary, Gary, at C as in, there you go, right there on the screen for you.
Is that Italian for courage?
What's that?
Is that like, I'm not sure, is it Italian for courage?
No, it's a made up word.
I think it
just sounds exotic, but it's made up.
Oh, it sounds like courage.
But it makes you think of courage because I help people to not be afraid when they have to tell their story.
Perfect.
Yeah. So it was a clever idea, I thought. 23 years ago, it was clever. So.
Oh, it is. So for pitching, I have no more questions right now, I think.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add, because there was someone said that they would like to hear the answer to that question. One thing that turns me off really, really quick is when someone tries to sell me too fast. It's like, you don't know who I am. You don't know what needs that I have. You don't know what is by needs, I mean problems, so that need to be solved. So it always, I'm always having people reach out to me on LinkedIn and talk to me on LinkedIn, and like it's just like I almost can make a timer whenever there's like a financial planner that wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. I can set like 10 minutes on my watch, and I know that within 10 minutes they're going to try to sell me something. And it's like, establish the relationship with me, do coffee, do something like that, and learn about that person and learn about how you can solve that person's challenges, whatever they're facing. So like the first step of the whole sales cycle is understanding that needs analysis. So once you learn what they need, then you can provide that solution for them. But when you're trying to solve a problem, you don't even know what their problems are. So it's like, to me, that's a cardinal sin.
Yeah, and just another don't, and it comes from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit number 5 is to seek first to understand and then to be understood. And oftentimes in these networking kinds of things, we run into the situation trying to hand out business cards and have people understand who we are without ever taking 5 minutes to understand who they are. And if you try to understand who someone else is first, they will likely reciprocate and attempt to understand who you are. But I see so many people go to networking events and they just want to tell everybody who they are.
I mean, and I typically, for me, I'll generally, it never really is planned, but I don't like the people that try to hand out their card to every single person they see. I will generally talk to 2 or 3 people the entire evening, and then we establish that connection and like, hey, let's go grab coffee next week or something like that, as opposed to be like, hi, how are you? Here's my card. Hi, how are you? Here's my card. It's like, I don't even know what you do. Why would I want your card? I mean, it's like,
Exactly.
save your 2 cents, however much it costs for your card. I guess I'm going to throw it in the trash. But that's just me.
So does that answer whoever Kay McGuire is? Did that answer your question, Alejandra?
Oh yeah. Can I ask this is a pitch question.
Okay. Yeah.
You mentioned, but you kind of glossed over this topic. I mean, I understand that when you're like, it's a live pitch and you have this opportunity, for corporal language, but Zoom doesn't really allow that. How can you practice making a more effective pitch on camera? Because I think a lot is lost.
Right. My suggestion was that you set your own Zoom thing. You get your own Zoom account, and which you can get. It's free, I think, for up to 40 minutes or something worth of a meeting. And you sign in, and it's just your camera on your laptop or whatever, and you do your pitch and you record it, and then you stop, and then you go. Once you end the Zoom session, the recording will go to your hard drive or whatever, and then you can go look at it on your hard drive. Say, oh, that's what I look like, or just use your phone, and set it up and video record yourself and then watch it.
No, I didn't understand that. I was like, how can you make it more effective? Not just practicing it. If there was a
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. How do you get coached to make it better?
When it's live, it's easier to connect with people. That I feel that. But when it's through Zoom, I think a lot is lost.
Oh, it is. It's much better in person. But if you have a choice to connect with people, whether it's on Zoom or in person, if you're not given the in-person opportunity, why would you pass up the opportunity even if it's in Zoom?
No, I wouldn't. I just was asking if there was something we can do to make it more effective.
I mean, it's virtual, so
yeah. I mean, your nonverbals certainly come into play when it comes to that. And like Gary was saying, voice inflection, smiling with your eyes, smiling with your face, that kind of thing but it's tough. It's really tough, and it's really tough in business meeting settings when other people are just doing email on a different screen, and
Right. Or they leave their camera off, and then you don't have any way of doing it. I mean, I taught it at the business school at William and Mary, and I had to teach online for the majority of the pandemic time, and it was a rule you had to have your camera on. You couldn't, because it was a synchronous class, as if we were in class together. You couldn't have your camera off, because I don't know if you're running the vacuum or feeding the baby or what you're doing, but I can't do any of those things. I had to be on the camera, so I said, y'all have to turn your camera on or else you're not here. So if you can do that, if you can set up a meeting so that you ask everyone to be on the camera or whatever, then that works. But otherwise, you're at the mercy of if people don't want to turn it on, they don't want to turn it on. So
and I've been I'm on the flip side though. I had to do a presentation a couple weeks ago, and like their policy is everyone is screen muted, only the speaker has a live screen. In that case, I would rather have everybody's on or everybody's off, because that way it's just easier for me. But it's tough. You got to learn how to do it and have the confidence in yourself. And what I'll typically do is I will look for the one person that's engaging, and I'll feel like I'm talking to that person, as opposed to, it's tough, especially some people at the previous micro pitch, they've already pitched, they're muted, they're not screen muted, and they're talking to someone the entire time, and it's just like, man, it's so distracting. But
well, and tonight, so Alejandra, you were one of the only ones that was on the camera while we were talking, and so I saw you there, and I talked to you when I had to talk, because you were the only. I mean, I already know Tim, so he was not he wasn't as engaging as I'm already used to looking at him. You were new, a new thing for me to look at. So I looked at you, and I thought, well, here's someone who doesn't know me. I'm going to look at her and explain these things, and you did things that were helpful. You would go, and then you would go and write something down. And that kind of feedback is really helpful to the speaker, because we realize, oh, somebody's actually paying attention. This is really cool. And that helps. So if you can find at least one person who's willing, and then what I do on those things is I will move my window so that your picture is under my camera. If you're the one that's moving, or whatever, I will move it right underneath my camera so that it looks like I'm looking at you.
Oh, that's actually a really nice trick. I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, because otherwise, as Tim says, if your camera's on a different machine, or if you're looking at yourself, so like if I go down, Elizabeth is on now, so if I go down to look at Elizabeth, this is what it looks like. Hi, Elizabeth, how are you? Doesn't look like I'm looking at the camera. The only way to make eye contact with people on Zoom is to look at your camera.
yeah, the other thing that I do during meetings, as you probably noticed tonight, every Zoom meeting that I do, I stand. So that way, because if I'm sitting, it's easier for me to get distracted when I'm sitting. I'll be like, oh, my phone is right here, or my other monitor is right here. But if I'm standing, the camera is right in front of me. I can't get distracted. And for me, I just think faster and more clear when I'm on my feet. But that's another thing I do.
Great tip. Yeah, that's actually pretty useful. I'll use both. Like I'll try to stand up more.
And if you're on a laptop or something that is movable, another thing to do is, like, this is what we get a lot of, is we get people who, and it looks like this, and there's whatever. You can put this like this is a laptop, so I could put it up on some books, and then I can talk to you here, and I'm looking right in the camera, so I'm looking right at the camera level, versus me looking down at it or something else. So these are things that you can do to help the audience be able to see that you know what you're doing. And so that can be helpful as well. Another tip. So cool. Have we been helpful? Moderately, remotely helpful?
No, you were really helpful. Thank you very much. I still
You're
have to
welcome.
so
And thanks for
You
being
guys were very helpful.
awesome. Thanks for being active in the thing tonight as well, and having the courage to ask questions. That's huge. Thanks for doing that.
thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask too many questions.
Oh no, never too many.
Nope.
I'm gonna send you that email. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, Gary, my computer is about 10 years old, so the pixel on my camera doesn't look really good. I look like a blurred cat.
Oh yeah, don't put it on then. Cool.
Well, if anybody has any questions, feel free to send the script of your pitch. We've had people send us links to Dropbox or actual videos of their pitch to us. We'll provide feedback to them. I mean, it is really clear as night and day for those people that when you do watch a micro pitch, those that have gone through through Pitch Perfect and those who have not. I mean, like with Tamika, it was very clear that she went through Pitch Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. It's more easy to tell the ones that haven't, because sometimes people who don't go to Pitch Perfect are good presenters anyway. But the ones that don't go and aren't very good, it becomes very obvious really, really fast. And so just by even sitting and listening to us, you'll be better. Sending your pitch, asking questions. Again, Tim is a strategy guy. I'm the color guy, and the presentation guy. But Tim will grill you about, the one thing we didn't say tonight either is that he and I have worked together for a long time, and we most often see people who have a great solution looking for a problem. So play that in your head. They have a great solution looking for a problem. So they've got this great thing, but nobody has a problem that needs that. And so it's useless. So we see that a lot. So make sure that you have a problem before you find a solution. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, I guess. Is that 2 weeks, Tim?
2 weeks from tomorrow. No,
Yeah.
is today Wednesday? 2 weeks
Yes.
from tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
And we'll get this recorded and uploaded to the Start Peninsula website so you can refer back to it.
Oh,
So,
hi, I have a question. My name is
Okay.
Kelly. I was wondering, you said that sometimes business cards should be presented first, but to me, sometimes a business card is a good groundbreaker to talk about who I am and what I'm pitching to somebody. Some people, everybody's not outgoing, but a business card helps open up a conversation.
You've heard that, or?
Well, I just feel like sometimes a business card helps open up a conversation. So, if I'm presenting my business card, I'm trying to open up a conversation who I'm trying to keep, the rapport with. So that's
Yeah, I just me personally, I wouldn't be giving people business cards until that there's an interest in connecting with them. The way I start conversations is, here's my networking tip. I look for people who are standing by themselves looking at their phones, because that means they are scared to death and they're looking at their phone because they don't know what they're doing there. So I can be a hero by going up to them and saying, hi, my name is Gary. And tell me about, what's your name? And then they'll say, my name is so-and-so. And I say, well, what do you do? And they say, well, I do X, Y, and Z. And I go, oh, tell me about how that works. And I get them talking. And now we have rapport. And then they're probably going to say, well, Gary, what do you do? And then I tell them what I do. And they go, wow, I've been looking for someone to help me with that for about 5 weeks. And I go, oh, okay. Would you like to exchange cards? And they go, yeah, that sounds great. And then I say, would you like to get coffee next week? And they go, yeah, that sounds great. And now we have rapport. But just to give somebody a card, I think I don't do it that way. I'd rather talk to them a little bit first and help them to feel comfortable.
Hello?
And, talk to them about that. So anyway, that's my way of doing it. But if you feel that it works to give them a card first, if it works for you.
For me, chances are I won't remember who that person is.
Right.
When I look at that card the next day or a couple of days later, I'll be like, I don't remember who that was.
Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. The other thing is that in COVID days, a lot of people don't want to be touching other people's stuff. So sometimes they'll just say, oh, can I, if you have a phone or iPhone, can I send you my contact information via my phone? And then it's electronic and you're not touching anything and you're not walking around with their card or your card or anything like that. And that works out too. I've done that in the past where I'm not shaking hands and I'm not touching somebody's business card that I don't know where it's been. I'll just do it electronically. So you can do that too. I think it's just really, really important in the networking world to connect with eye contact and conversation and then determine if it's a good fit. And then you can swap business cards if you want or information. And then as Tim says, when you go home that night, as I mentioned earlier, you email that person and say, I really enjoyed meeting you this evening at the XYZ Chamber after hours. As you may recall, we talked about your struggle in the translation world and how to get business. I have some ideas about that, and I'd love to meet with you and have coffee. Okay, now they remember who you are. I was just using you as an example, Alejandra, I was just kidding. But mention what you talked about even. And, even if that means that you get their contact information and you walk away for 3 minutes and you put in a note in your notes thing in your phone, it says, Alejandra she asked a question about this. This is something she wants to have information about. Mention this in the email. And then I go on to the next person. But I take some notes about the people that I've met so I can refer back to that when I send them the email afterwards to say, I really enjoyed meeting you.
I don't know if I can add something. I got an awesome tip today about that. Someone recommended me to actually have like a journal, networking journal, to have just one book or one notebook that you can take to these networking events. And before you go there, to already have, the date, the name of the networking event, and even a list, lines with numbers. So you can write down things like who you met, what do you talk about, maybe you both connected over blue, maybe your favorite color was blue and he or she was wearing blue or whatever. So that was a really good tip to then follow up, just write something, kind of clue you can, then you can follow up. I love it. I know that.
Yep. I used to write it on people's business cards. They would give me their card once I determined it was a good connection. And I would just walk away and I would write stuff that on the back of their business card that I remembered about them and that they needed from me. And then I would send them the thing the next day. And they were always grateful. Thank you or they would say, wow, you followed up, because a lot of people won't follow up. So follow up is so important. Yep.
Cool.
So yeah, I think I turned this conversation into networking instead of teaching, so I apologize for that.
I think everybody's learning something from it, so it's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Well, if you need anything from us, you know how to get in touch with us. In the meantime,
Thanks for being on tonight. It was a pleasure to meet everybody.
Yes.
And look forward to seeing you on the 6th.
All right, everyone. Have a good night.
Take care, everybody.
Good night. Great job, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.